People want me to cover this because this channel's been going super viral lately. It's called Basic Logic, and it is very clearly a right-wing channel. But it does that, like, white on black drawing animation style, super simplistic, sort of reminiscent of Salmonella. It's super algorithm bait. It's, you know, he's uploading weekly. I have no doubt he's probably using AI a lot in his production, which is probably why he's able to produce at such a high rate, which is perfect for the algorithm. So you've probably seen this guy in your recommended or had his videos pushed to you. He's the one with those like very blatant thumbnails where it's like a black guy with an Uzi and it's like, why are black people like this is the title. Yeah, we're dealing with some real chud content here. Let's see what this guy's all about. He made a new video just today. It came out just a few hours ago called Why is Black America So Racist? And on the cover of the video was The Black Klansman. Apparently that movie was racist against white people. Let's find out.
Let me ask you a question. Let's say a member of your identity group goes somewhere he shouldn't, gets asked to leave, and instead of leaving, he pulls out a knife and stabs a teenager to death.
Ah, we're talking about Carmelo Anthony. Sick.
Do you A, denounce the crime, B, stay silent, or C, give him $500,000? If you chose C, then congratulations. You might be a black American.
So, the reason why people got mad about the Carmelo Anthony thing, if you've fallen for the like psyop that people are claiming he's innocent or shouldn't be in any legal trouble, sorry, you fell for the right-wing psyop. That's not why people are upset. The reason why people are upset, specifically, is because Carmelo Anthony was charged and found guilty of first-degree murder, which is the most severe and hardcore murder charge you can possibly get. Carmelo, teenager, gets that murder charge and is going to have to serve 35 years in prison. I have no doubt that pretty much everyone agrees he needs to serve prison time, certainly for some tier of murder, but first degree is insane. In the state of Texas, in order for a non-premeditated, basically for non-first degree murder to be charged and convicted as first degree, you need a unanimous agreement from the jury. The entire jury has to agree. Noticeably, when doing jury selection for this case, no black jurors were accepted onto the jury, as it was known that if even a single juror said no to first-degree murder, it wouldn't stick. And so they seemingly made sure the jury was all non-black so that there would be a much lower likelihood of anybody on the jury saying no to first-degree charges. And I think we can all agree that at the very least, Carmelo Anthony should be charged with the crime he actually committed. He did not commit first-degree murder. First-degree murder requires premeditation, planning out on how you're going to cover up for things and planning everything out. That's not what happened. It was horrible, but what it was a dumbass teenager getting into a fight he shouldn't have gotten into, and then making the biggest mistake of his fucking life, and pulling out a weapon and stabbing another teenager to death. That was not a premeditated assassination murder plan, first degree. That was a dumb teenager freaking out and making the worst mistake of his life. There have been many cases where white boys have done this and got less than 10 years. There was a racially motivated aspect to the sentencing here, and that is why people are upset. And what people are pushing for is a retrial, where hopefully a more realistic conclusion, more realistic sentence is doled out.
Been study after study trying to measure in-group preference among ethnic groups in the US. And consistently, the most racist group is Black Americans, with the least racist being white. Their exploits include...
Is that really true? I'm really curious about this. Let's fact check that. Sociological and polling data shows that there is no single most racist demographic in America, as racism is a complex phenomenon that varies by individual and... Surveys such as those conducted by Pew Research Center frequently track which groups of Americans believe experience the most bias. For example, a majority of Americans acknowledge that Black, Hispanic, and Asian people face discrimination, though perceptions of who harbors that bias often differ along ideological and political lines. Research into racial attitudes often finds that political ideology is a stronger predictor of racial prejudice than race itself. Studies indicate that demographic differences in these surveys are often driven by varying political beliefs regarding the existence and severity of racial inequality in the United States. Rather than asking which group is most prejudiced, researchers often analyze the demographic groups that are most likely to experience the effects of racism. So what I'm guessing is this isn't data on who is more racist, it's data on who is more prejudiced. That is to say white people, according to this data, or at least what seems to be the consensus, and I assume this data is part of that and not just some out there super fringe thing like what we talked about with Asmongold today. Assuming this is a very by the books, like agreed upon, accepted study, it seems to suggest that black people are way more likely to see themselves as an outgroup and other groups as part of another group, as like separate from them, than white people are. And that actually lines up pretty well with how I perceive most racial dynamics in America. It seems like most white people in this day and age are steeped enough in, I guess you could consider this white privilege, that their identity as a white person isn't even something they think about much unless it gets brought up externally. Like when somebody says you need to check your privilege as a white man, you're like, man, I haven't thought about the fact that I'm a white man all day until you brought it up. You know, like that's kind of how a lot of white people are, because they're raised in a world where their race doesn't matter. Like, unless you're at a Klan rally, your race as a white guy doesn't matter. But if you're black, Hispanic, Asian, but especially black, in America, your race matters all the time, and it poisons your worldview to a degree. So there might actually be a basis to this claim in that being victims of racism for hundreds of years has made black people see race as a far more important and fundamental thing than white people do in America. And that leads to prejudice, and depending on how you decide to categorize it, prejudice counts as racism.
Include, but are not limited to, burning down entire cities because one of them got shot while attacking a policeman or overdosed, founding a nationwide cult to describe non-blacks as soulless and demonic.
Okay. The Nation of Islam is some of the most fringe of fringe imaginable, but are like, okay, so if Nation of Islam is acknowledgeable as like crazy black supremacist insanity, you agree that the KKK, white nationalist groups, America First, these groups are also, like, they show how racist white people are, I guess? Like, why would you even call out fringe groups when white people are the most known for having racial supremacist fringe groups? Is that really the path we want to be taking?
Taking an entire month to celebrate their history, mostly without knowing their history.
God, oh my god, dude. What is YouTube these days? We're doing We Was Kings posting on the fucking viral feed.
Stealing other cultures' historical figures and beloved folktales.
Helen of Detroit. Man, he's leaning into it hard.
Putting up monuments of irrelevant, overweight black women everywhere. And lecturing others about...
I don't know who they are, but I'm sure they did something, and there's a reason why massive crowds gathered to witness. Why is there a big crowd gathered here if this is a nobody? I don't know who these people are from, like, looking at them, because they're statues, but why is there a big crowd if this is a nobody? Okay.
How everyone else is racist by default because of their skin color. Ironic. As well as being the only comparable identity in America to have more murder offenses.
This guy's not even American, I mean that fucking accent. This guy's probably Danish or Swedish, if I were to guess. There are a lot of, like the most insufferable Nazis on the internet are Danish and Swedish Nazis. It's just, from his going off of his accent, that's what I would guess is where he's from, either Denmark or Sweden.
Than murder victims. Which for those of you who are mathematically challenged, means they are more likely to be
Oh, he might be German. He actually sounds a little German now that I think about it.
Perpetrators of interracial violence than the victims of it. But why are they like that? In this video, I go over the main theories, and if you enjoy it, consider subscribing, it helps the channel. Theory 1. Historical grievances. This argues that the contentious history between whites and blacks, such as slavery or Jim Crow, is the reason for today's anti-white racism. However, racism usually follows simple cause and effect. A bad experience leads to prejudice. No one alive today in America was a slave, and
it didn't come from nowhere. A bad experience leads to prejudice. Why do I keep having to use this word today? This is a fallacy. Stereotypes and racist prejudice, as he explained, comes from individual experiences that people have, and that is a logical fallacy called anecdotal generalization, the logical error of drawing a broad, universal conclusion based on a small, unrepresentative sample of personal stories or isolated experiences. Like, this is the fundamental basis of all right-wing content, and you're admitting it now. Okay.
No one was a slave owner. If historical reasons are the cause of current racism, then that can only be possible if older generations are teaching younger generations to hold on to that grudge. And what's
like, how long are you not allowed to hold on to something? By the way, what is even hold on to something in this context? Because by the sounds of it, you're saying we need to bury it. We need to sweep the history. That's what you're implying here, is that if we are not actively sweeping the history of slavery, Jim Crow, redlining, segregation, racist disproportionate policing, racist disproportionate sentencing, the prison system literally being constitutionally an exception to the banning of slavery, like, are we really going to... Are we just supposed to not talk about it and sweep all that stuff under the rug? And also, considering how many black people today have parents or grandparents who are alive who experienced half of that list of things in their lifetimes, are they just supposed to not talk about it? Like, the first 50% of their life, when it was written into the law that they were lesser than white people and couldn't have the same rights as white people, couldn't live where white people lived, couldn't go to the schools that white people lived at, couldn't ride on the same buses, use the same water fountains, that was the first half of their life, and now in the latter half, they're just supposed to forget about it, not talk about it, and make sure their kids don't, and their grandkids don't know about it, because it might make them see white people differently. Really? Like, are you as a white person... Mind you, you're not even American. Not even fucking American talking about American racial politics. Fucking cuck. Anyway, so black Americans are just supposed to not talk about it. Also, if you are a white American and you think that this is so shameful, that the history of what white people have done to... If the history of what white people have done to black people is so severe that black people even knowing about it is going to make them racist, you're the one with the white guilt, bro. I don't think you've realized that, and this guy's not even fucking American, but if you think that knowing history is going to make black people hate white people, the history of what white people did to black people, that's guilt, bro. That's white guilt you're having right there, buddy.
Striking is that historical grievances usually fade over time, because it's illogical to blame people.
And they do, but we live in a fantasy world. Well, we live in a world where most people engaging with politics are 20 to 30 and were not alive during this, and they heard about it in history classes and in school. So we think of, like, Martin Luther King Jr. as having lived like 100 years ago. And if you look up MLK, if you look up Martin Luther King, notice how almost every photo is in really, really, like, fucked up, grainy black and white. Like, wow, man, this guy, he lived so long ago. This is a real photo. This is what photographs actually looked like back then. Notice how every photo of him that's popular and spread around that we see is in black and white. It almost feels like an active effort to make him seem like his activism in his life was longer ago than it was, but then you see this photo and you're like, whoa, wait a minute. That was not that long ago. That actually was really not that long ago. Like, this is not history. This is not even history at this point. Like, this is pop culture. People are still around. A lot of people are still around that were there for his speeches, right? Like, this is not the kind of ancient fucking history that people want to pretend it is. I get that if you're like 20 years old, it feels like it was generations ago. It wasn't even, like, your grandparents were probably alive when he was giving his speeches, okay? That is how different America was in the lifetimes of people, a lot of people who are still around today in America. It has an effect. It has not been that long. Like, granted, this effect will happen, but it just hasn't been that long.
People who weren't born yet for crimes neither you or anyone you know suffered. Yet black anti-white sentiment seems to worsen with each passing year. Other groups, the Irish, Asians, Italians, also endured severe discrimination and moved on. That's why I'm confident this is mostly rationalization, not...
Okay, when did the Irish face discrimination? When were they doing the Irish people are inside out and then the N-word bit? When was that? When was Irish need not apply? in reference to whites only, like on the discriminate. When was that a thing? Literally ended in the 1920s. Okay, like the 1920s and 30s are when we stopped demonizing Irish people so hard in America. It was still a little cringe going into like the 40s and 50s, but man, by the like there was the Irish were not considered a demonized group by the 80s. Okay, like the most we've got is memes and jokes about like Irish people being drunk. Okay, like Irish and Italians. Like we're talking about like 1920s and before tenement housing in New York City type shit. Like when was what was his name? Something Reese. He's a controversial guy, but he took a lot of famous photos of like immigrants in New York City back in the day. Jacob Reese, a Danish immigrant, pioneering photojournalist, in the 19th century. What year was he doing this in? 1890. So yeah, like the late 1800s, early 1900s is what we're talking about here. So if you're trying to make a comparison to slavery, you could say slavery happened, like if it just was slavery, then full liberation, and then black people were equal for like over 100 years until now, then you'd have a point. But we're talking about discrimination from over 100 years ago for Irish people and Italians. So of course, and there was no like, there wasn't like a follow-up. It didn't like, it was very much like a snap, more or less a snap, and the discrimination was over, generations passed, people forget. And then when it comes to Asians still face a lot of discrimination in America, but statistically, the majority of Asians in America are either the direct descendants of or direct immigrants from a country. And specifically Asian immigrants we're selecting for a group of people with a lot of money and a lot of social status where they came from. They tend to come here and start businesses because they've got money and they've got capital. And they were lucky and had enough resources to get into America and start a business. So Asian immigrants into America, which make up a lot of the Asian population here, we're selecting for like the most successful of the countries they came from and brought them here. Of course, like the fact that 80 years ago, 70 years ago, we were extremely discriminatory towards Asians does not play a big part when it comes to immigrants who came here 15 years ago and started a business. Like, yeah, it kind of makes sense. They're doing pretty all right.
Not the root cause. Which brings me to theory 2. They're taught to hate. This one is more compelling.
Oh boy.
Education and media have pushed anti-white sentiment hard. In schools, slavery is often taught as a unique white crime, ignoring that slavery was universal across human history.
No, it's fucking not, dog. Would you never take a Latin class, you fucking idiot? Dude, half of... I expected Latin classes, like, because I took 3 years of Latin, I think. I think I took pre-Latin, Latin, and Latin 2, is what I believe I took. I thought Latin was going to be learning Latin. And there's a bit of that. Keyword on a bit. There's a bit of learning Latin, but it's not like Spanish class, where like Spanish class is 70% or 80% learning Spanish and then like 20% learning Spanish culture. No. Latin is about 10% learning Latin and 90% learning like the cultures from which like that use Latin. And boy, was there plenty of slavery being discussed in Latin class. Oh my God. I learned all sorts of European slavery stuff in my Latin class. It was talked about thoroughly.
That Africans enslaved and sold other Africans to Europeans, and that it was Europeans who led the global fight to abolish it. Media is even worse. Biased coverage fueled Black Lives Matter.
Hold on. Wait, what did you say there? I wasn't paying attention.
Africans to Europeans, and that it was Europeans who led the global fight to abolish it. Media is even worse.
Wait, so he's trying to argue that Europeans ended slavery, so Europeans, having ever done slavery, should just be swept under the rug and never taught about. Cool. Because remember, what he is arguing here is that knowing the history of America makes black people racist and it makes them hate white people. So fundamentally, the only solution we could have to this is we have to hide the history. We can't teach the history. We have to sweep all of the history of racism against black people in America under the rug, which is, it's weird how much racists have wanted to do that for so long. Makes you wonder, huh?
Biased coverage fueled Black Lives Matter riots by portraying every cop as an immediate lethal threat.
Remember, if you agree with it, it's a protest. If you disagree with it, it's a riot. I wonder what this guy calls the insurrection on the Capitol. I'm sure he calls it a protest.
Black people, despite data showing police shootings track crime involvement, not race. This narrative made black suspects more afraid, less compliant, and more likely to escalate. Movies, news, and activism reinforce the idea that America is irredeemably racist against blacks, despite it being
No. You're bullshitting. You're not even American. Nobody is saying that America is irredeemably racist towards blacks. That is the fundamental antithesis of what woke means, by the way. Also, you even got me saying it now, but blacks, really? You're not doing the best job of hiding your beliefs, bro. Anyway, yeah, to be very, very clear, no one is saying this. That is antithetical to the entire movement of wokeness. Like, on a basic level, like, what's the point of being woke if you don't believe that there is a way to make America less racist? Like, what's the whole point of the movement? I guess in their worldview, the point of the movement is just to complain, even though, like, mass complaining about things to the government is how you make change.
largely a fiction. If you disagree, I offer you the following challenge. List a systemic disadvantage that black people have.
Man, this is such, like, Zoomer, like, bait now that I think about it. Like, he's using the Minecraft font and everything. Like, everything about this is just designed to go viral in a really just shameless way.
But you can't just say an effect like black people go to prison more. You have to mention a current day unique legal discrimination that causes it.
Well, it's because if you don't, then you're just oversimplifying situations. Like, you just want to sweep info that's inconvenient under the rug. Like, why is this a video, an educational video about why we should not discuss history? Like, what are you doing? You're like, dude, hold on. Okay. If we were having a conversation about the arrest rates and incarceration rates of black people, do you think that do you think it matters at all, or is worth discussing the rate at which white people get arrested for the same crime as a black person and get a substantially less severe sentence despite having no priors or the same amount of priors? Is that not relevant? Because if we're talking about the amount of black people in America incarcerated, don't you think the severity of their sentences compared to white people for the same crime under the same circumstances matters when, like, one of them gets 5 years and the other gets 10? Because that means you're getting countless black people who are getting over-policed. We already know that's a thing, too. Like, their neighborhoods get policed more, their areas get policed more, black people get put under more scrutiny by cops, so they're more likely to get stopped and investigated. And then they're more likely to get a more severe penalty than a white person and serve more time than a white person for the same crime. So accounting for all those factors, you should expect the prisons to be chock full of black people. And they are. So don't you think that those details matter to any conversation about the criminology, like, of all this? Or do we just want to sweep it because it's inconvenient?
Day unique legal discrimination that causes it. Theory 3. They're paid to hate. Put simply, being racist against white people is profitable. 2020's George...
So true. So true. You know, I love when, like, half of the attacks I get are from conservatives claiming I'm a grifter who just wants to make easy money off of hating white people, and the other half are literally dedicated, targeted hate videos on me about how I'm bad because I'm broke. I'm not joking. I'm sure you've seen the slop videos attacking me. 90% of them hate me because I'm broke. That's literally, like, the fundamental basis of their attacks. So simultaneously, being an anti-white lefty is a grift that's easy money, but also a pathetic, broke boy, go woke, go broke, lol cow, the left can't be successful, nobody wants to support left-wing politics, so on and so forth. Like, it's weird how quickly they jump between those two positions, but okay.
Floyd riots caused billions in damages, and yet corporate America donated hundreds of millions to the organizations behind it.
True! You know what they actually did? They didn't donate to the organizations behind it. They donated to the bail funds of the people that got arrested because so many people were getting arrested on video for doing nothing but peacefully protesting. So many people got pepperballed and assaulted by the cops on video, having done absolutely nothing, and then were arrested. Those specific people were identified, and massive amounts of money were raised to bail them out of jail because they were, like, the cops were caught on video arresting them for no reason. That's what actually happened. I know because I was fucking there. Not physically at the protest, but I was covering all of this as it went down, bit by bit.
Is used to justify programs such as DEI, affirmative action, and talks of reparations. Grifters on social...
You'll notice that if you were around in 2020, you'll remember that 2016 became mythologized in a lot of really weird ways. And you probably noticed it's, still happening today. But if you progress a little further, we're now in 2026, and you can see that 2020 is being mythologized in a lot of similar ways to how 2016 was back in 2020, where the BLM riots, they're being brought up a lot lately by conservative pundits. I think primarily because it's been 6 years. A lot of people on the left see it as settled, not worth arguing about, not worth debating. But the right, they see the lack of interest in debating it by the left as an opportunity to cement their completely lie-filled narrative as the history that people remember, the culturally remembered history. Antonio Talks is a great channel who rightfully picked apart one video of his that was 3 months ago, and Basic Logic hasn't lived it down. You can see he's big mad.
Media can make their livelihoods by simply lying about key social events to paint black people as victims and get hordes of racist support, causing a feedback loop of fury too. It also...
I'm like, what was said specifically in that video, the Carmelo Anthony is innocent video? What was said there? Are you going to respond to any of the claims? Because I'd be curious to see. Oh, look at that goy tube. I didn't even notice that. That's great. Race grifters. Oh my god. So this guy is on the left, makes a lot of money for being woke, and they're grifters train. That's this guy's train. He's not on the go woke, go broke train. He's on the all woke are grifters for easy money train. Okay.
Gives them cultural dominance, since no one can criticize them without being labeled racist. The trick is to maintain the lie that black communities are eternally victimized in America. That way, the people supposedly oppressing them keep giving them money out of guilt. Which also...
I just genuinely would love to know, how many Confederate flags are up on the walls of the people that are watching this video. Like when they watch this video, it's they're sitting there yeah, finally, someone who's taking a reasonable perspective on things. They got a Confederate flag up on their wall.
Explains why Black America has an envy problem in their own community, as successful blacks break that illusion. Successful blacks, especially Nigerians who outperform other blacks dramatically, get called all...
Oh, remember what I brought up about the Asian immigrants earlier? So yes, this is true of pretty much every immigrant group in America. If you immigrate here, mostly if you're not coming from South America, because that's a little bit higher access, but if you're coming from across any ocean, whether it be the Atlantic or the Pacific, statistically speaking, you are going to be outperforming the vast, vast majority of native-born Americans, regardless of the race. This includes Nigerian immigrants. Nigerian immigrants are highly successful. But why would that be the case? Well, think about it. If you're able to immigrate from Nigeria and just set up a life in America, same deal as with Asian immigrants. You're already at the top of the social caste in Nigeria, and just hopping on over to America wasn't that challenging for you. We're selecting for really smart, really bright, really already successful people here. And that's why Nigerian immigrants outperform American black people on a statistical level, socioeconomically. Because we are selecting for people with the wealth, power, and influence to come here and immigrate in the first place, and oftentimes to start a business.
Manner of creative slurs. So if you want to know how to end black racism, just stop paying them to hate us.
True! Wow! That's so real. That's so real. That's why it's happening. True. Okay, cool. So it's just a non-existent problem with a non-existent solution, so we can just circle jerk for 5 minutes about how white people are oppressed. Cool.
Of course, you'd also have to convince the self-flagellating white liberals.
Me!
So good luck with that.
Me. He's probably going to make a video in response to me calling me that. Anyway, yeah, I've seen that guy's videos come up in the algorithm every once in a while, and it kind of makes sense. My guess would be that Trump ordered YouTube not just to stop banning right-wing channels, but to also start suppressing left-wing channels that, like, make fun of him. So not only are we seeing a big boost to right-wing content on YouTube lately, but a big deboost to left-wing content. And that would be my theory. But if you want to fight against it, then leave a like and a comment on this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you want to see more, and drop a comment down below. But of course, don't forget, only about 10% of my viewers tend to like or update, whatever you want to call it, my videos. So upping that ratio helps immensely. Anyway, folks, thank you for watching. And as always, have a good one.